The marketing for the Cloverfield Paradox reflects the movie. They don't explain anything in the trailers, so they don't explain anything in the movie. Hello everyone, I think it's safe to say Netflix made a pretty big splash at the Super Bowl when they, instead of just dropping a trailer, they dropped an entire movie. Now, sorry if I seem kinda low energy or my voice is a little off, I've been really sick this last week. Sorry about that. I am a huge fan of 10 Cloverfield Lane. It was probably in my top 5 movies of 2016. Absolutely loved that movie and loved what they did with the marketing. Just bam, you have a trailer, no one knew about the movie, came out about a month and a half later. Fantastic. Loved pretty much everything about the movie and the marketing overall. So I was really excited for what was then called God Particle, and then all of this drama had started ensuing, and then it got pushed back like 4 or 5 times. So I wasn't ever actually expecting that this movie would really ever come out, because I'd been hearing so much of it for like 2 years and nothing had happened. So when Netflix said that they were dropping it tonight, my expectations were not very high, because they would have pumped it up a lot more if they actually thought the movie was good. And the movie isn't very good. So let's get with the positive things out of the way first. The premise is fantastic. The general storyline, which they don't tell you in the trailers, but I'll tell you now, it's basically these people are making a particle accelerator from space to try and help deal with the energy crisis, and something goes wrong and the Earth disappears, and they don't know what's going on. Even though they don't do great things with the beginning of the movie and the execution of the premise is still captivating. And for the majority of the film, the mystery elements of what actually happened are pretty compelling throughout. And also, I said that the last act of the movie is pretty solid. While there are a few issues with logic and it's kind of derivative from a lot of other films that you've seen before, it's pretty effective and it feels like a pretty satisfying ending to the movie. And the cast all did pretty well. I mean, the supporting cast didn't really have much to do, and a lot of the comedy with them didn't really work. But the main cast, they all did a pretty serviceable jobs. Gugu Mbatha-Raw, Daniel Bruhl, David Oyelowo, Elizabeth Debicki, they all did really well. So no complaints on that front. But the characters are not very well developed, they're very formulaic, and they don't really do anything other than surface level stuff with the characters, so there isn't really any characters that stand out, even though the acting's pretty good. The beginning is also not very strong. I mean, they have a scene with Gugu Mbatha-Raw and her relationship with her family that should have been a little further on into the movie, because the pacing of the beginning made no sense with the rest of the film. They don't really explain much about the premise at all, like why there's no energy, why this particle accelerator will give them energy, and if it does, how is that going to be harvested, and how is that going to solve the issues of the world. They don't really ever explain any of that, so you don't really feel like there's a whole lot of stakes at the beginning. Also, pretty much everything with Gugu Mbatha-Raw's family you can cut out of the movie, because during the mystery element of what's happening on Earth, what happened to the Earth, they cut back to Earth. Like, are you kidding me? No. You just ruined a lot of the tension in your movie by just cutting back to Earth. They should have at least pushed that off until after you find out what actually happened, or just not had it in the movie, as it didn't really add anything. The characters are all very stereotypical. It's very formulaic. You've seen this basic storyline hundreds and hundreds of times before. It's not breaking any new ground, except for the premise is pretty interesting, but in the actual execution, it's nothing new. While the premise does give a good job at giving a surface level explanation for why some of these crazy things happen, they don't ever actually delve into the logistics of them, and once you think about that, it makes no sense. And the premise also never explains how the monsters from the original Cloverfield actually get there. So it doesn't really even function as a Cloverfield prequel. This film overall is pretty lazy, and it's not really well thought out. Also, a lot of the exposition is given in like news articles and stuff like that, which is just annoying. They also try and tie this movie in a lot more than 10 Cloverfield Lane did to the original Cloverfield, and it doesn't quite work, because the explanation doesn't make sense, and it just feels like a cash grab. Hey, look at all of these shiny things you saw from the original Cloverfield, just with a different perspective on it. It doesn't add anything to the movie, and it messes with the already subpar pacing of the film. Overall, this movie, it has some things going for it. It has some tense scenes, it has a decent mystery element and a great premise and some good performances, But other than that, it's pretty weak. The dialogue's bad. The just writing in general is not very well thought out. So I'm gonna have to give this movie about a 4.5 out of 10. It's not very good. I'm not going to really think about this movie much after it, which is so disappointing. And apparently Cloverfield 4 is actually going to get a theatrical release like in October or somewhere. So I don't think that movie is actually going to do well because this movie isn't very good and it's not getting a lot of good buzz. So thanks for watching, guys. Comment down below what you thought of the movie, or if you haven't seen it, if you're looking forward to it, and also just what other reviews or type of editorial videos you would like to see me make in the future.